I appreciate being here. It actually worked out very nicely. I'm on a bit of a European tour right now. I started in Portugal on Monday and was in Sweden on Wednesday and was able to spend today meetings with some customers and with some of our partners here in country. So it's been a very effective visit, and what I'm actually doing during this European trip is discussing exactly how we can help power the end-to-end communications through the use of partners and through the use of IP-based infrastructure within the electric utilities, really converging the electrical networks and the IT infrastructure that many other industries have adopted and driving a higher level of automation and therefore operational efficiency, customer enablement, and many other areas. So just wanted to give you a flavor of some of the areas that we're working in, and I'll certainly make some reference to the various areas that we're working with partners in throughout the discussion. First of all, John Chambers is our CEO, and he's very passionate about this topic of energy and what network technologies will do for smart grids and smart buildings, and what we're working towards is ensuring that we have a sustainable level of energy within our global customer base, and we have a continuous, secure network that'll serve and provide for the modern technologies and modern applications that are being applied to the electric grid. So I won't read the whole statement, but it really is truly a business transformation, and it's really focused on providing an efficient, effective transmission media for energy. Obviously, electrons move the way electrons move. We're not changing that aspect of it, but we are bringing how the bits and bytes can help the movement of those electrons. So what are the opportunities? This is always the key interest area of any industrial business when you're looking at going into a new business area, and also from our customer base. They're continually looking at what their opportunities are to improve their operations and maybe move into new business models. So the opportunities within smart grid certainly are new businesses and service models for utilities, and we just heard a little bit from Fordham as to what's happening there. Pleased to say that both in Stockholm and here in Helsinki, I've met with Vattenfall as well and heard of some of the new business models that they're looking at. So it's been a very interesting trip to hear what's happening here in the Nordic countries, incorporating key grid intelligence functions. And this really is what Base N is about. Understanding how you can take intelligence from various points within the grid or within a consumer's consumption points, and change behaviors, change analytics, and really gain efficiencies from that. So we're looking at those technologies. Consumer participation in energy management, absolutely the pilot that Fordham just described is absolutely a key aspect as to what's driving smart grids and what's driving both consumers, regulators, and utility customers to be interested in smart grids. And for Cisco, smart grid is an innovation platform, and it's not just Cisco, it's many companies in the world. Base N has evolved as an innovation platform in many aspects of the industries that they're in, and it's companies like Base N and other partners that we work with that are really driving some of these innovations. And we, as Cisco, we have many innovations that we do in-house, but we also look for opportunities to work with partner companies and to use the technologies that they are maybe bringing on a smaller scale into mass scale operations. The smart part, gray to green transformation. Currently, utilities are kind of worried about the bottom level, improving their grid infrastructure, improving reliability to customers, supporting the increase in demand and the variability of demand. Absolutely, you've heard about this from Bessa, the summer peak periods that occur when the cottage season starts. Certainly, I heard an interesting fact here the other day about the Friday evening peaks that occur when people come home and turn on their saunas here. It's an interesting aspect. Actually, the UK has a work week 7 a.m. peak due to the hair straighteners all being plugged in at the same time. So it's interesting hearing the demand and variability that occurs around the world, and we certainly see similar things in the U.S. So utilities have traditionally been focused on this, creating a stronger grid, making sure that they're maintaining infrastructure and providing for that grid level of activity. What's happening with the transformation in the industry has been moving towards a smarter grid, embedding sensing, processing, communications, and software, and that's been happening really continuously throughout the development of the electric grid, right back from the last 100 years of history. But really in the last 10 years, we've seen an incredible amount of automation available. Really just the development of technology has led to a greater application of automation into the electricity grid. And where we are now in the transformation is really getting new applications for the grid, transforming processes, converging systems, and building applications that are network independent. No longer are you worried about building an application with its own purpose-built network. We're now seeing a convergence of networks, and we're seeing the network become the platform for new applications. Certainly the sensing applications that Base N has, and then the capabilities for the analytics that go behind all that is now making it a much more effective grid. And demonstration projects like what Vesa described, certainly we're seeing that around the world. Utilities around the world are rolling up those, be it in the developing countries, in Brazil and other areas, or in the very highly industrialized areas in Europe here, as well as in the US. So we're seeing that all over, and it's focused on performing an effective grid. All stakeholders are included now. You have the regulators, the utility companies, and the consumers. Once upon a time, the general, when you hear a utility speak of its consumers, it wasn't treating it as a consumer or a customer. It was really treating it as an endpoint. It was a load. They referred to the customer as a load. And now, truly we're seeing cooperation in a different way than we ever have before. So we are seeing a move towards utilities of the future. When you're approaching any new topic area or any issues, you need to look at what your challenges and drivers are. In the utility industry, there's been a lot of uncertainty of government actions, no matter where you are in the world. The level of deregulation, regulation, re-regulation. To Vesa's point, in Russia, they've been very consistent about their move towards deregulation, and that hasn't happened everywhere. In the U.S., we had, in the early 2000s, a big move towards deregulation, and it was actually completely misrepresented when they were going through the efforts of deregulation. It was represented as, it's going to save you money. That means, I used to take $10 out of my wallet, today I only take $9 out of my wallet. And the reality was, it's going to save the future cost to you, is what it was. That's what deregulation was about. There had been a lack of investment, and they needed to invest more for the future. And deregulation absolutely was a good way to go about it, to enable more private investment and rates of return for businesses that really could add value to it. However, it got misrepresented politically, and it became a big problem for many parts of the U.S. early on, so we ended up with re-regulation. So government actions critical in the move towards a smart grid. CapEx, growth, and requirements. CapEx is a concern to any business, and in the utility industry, traditionally, you build your CapEx programs around the rates of return that you can get from your regulators. So it's a give and take, and you have to prioritize and justify your spend. Aging workforce is going on around the world in multiple industries. Aging infrastructure. The majority of the electric infrastructure was built after World War II, and it hasn't seen many major refreshes. It's really, we're dealing with a 40-plus-year-old infrastructure in many cases, so that's an opportunity to move forward with new technology and innovation. And then, for the first time, customer participation is really becoming a critical driver within the utility industry. So, very much like what happened in the telecommunications sector a number of years ago, when that area deregulated, and you saw the consumer suddenly become a very important part of the new business models going forward. So when you look at market transitions, and this has happened across multiple industries now, And traditionally you have all-in-one. If you think of your office of even back in the 90s, you had a data system, you had a voice system. Didn't have video in your office back then, but you might have had a fax machine. You know, there was various purpose-built independent systems. Nothing talked to each other very well. You know, maybe you had a printer. It took quite an effort to set up a printer to communicate with your computer. It was an all-in-one kind of system. Then we moved to more of a networks of networks. And we started getting some connectivity between things. Things were working a little bit better, but still basically everything was built to perform some sort of function. Network as a platform, this is where we've been most of the 2000s here so far. And this is where the network suddenly has converged, and your USB port on your computer, for instance, the plug-and-play type technology that you have available from that, the network is now a platform. The communications network and media is now a platform. And where we are now is into the collaboration mode, and this is, again, with some of what Base N offers. The network is no longer the concern. It's what can you gain from the network and what applications can you put on top of it. And that's where we are today in the electric utilities as well. It's a very interesting concept, seeing how this has come about. Applying the lessons learned. Cisco was around, started 25 years ago, and that's about just a few years after the internet started. And so we've been building from the internet and applying that intelligence into building the smart grid. It ultimately comes down to a business and technology architecture. You need to take, what are your business cases, what are you trying to solve for, what are the business problems that you have, and then how do you apply technology to solve those problems? And some of the key things that we've learned from that, and the internet has become the platform that it is for so many things because of the fact of these key things. You know, policy has really remained simple and open for the internet. It's been very easy to build functionality into the internet because it hasn't been overly regulated. So that's been pretty consistent throughout the development of the internet. Simplicity over perfection. Keep it simple. Don't worry about trying to solve every last aspect of the problem. You know, you're going to have to learn from some mistakes as you go forward, and that's another development that happened in the internet. The ability to scale. I mean, scale is everything in today's world. You look at the internet, you look at Google and what's happening in the internet, it's because there's no limitations. The scale is wide open. And that's critical when you get into the utility space and you're talking about utilities that have millions of customers. Therefore, there's millions of devices that they have to maintain, monitor, you know, treat as valued assets and understand the condition of them throughout, provide information to those customers, those millions of customers. And these are all critical aspects when it comes to scale. Innovate at the core and edges. And this is where the sensing network has been coming and building up. And we're now able to add innovation at the core, or not only at the core, but at the edges of the environment. And in today's world, you hear a lot about cloud computing. And that's where the core, the cloud, is now enabling so much on the edge where the consumers are. And then security continues throughout. There's no doubt that everything that happens in the electric grid needs to be secure, needs to be risk-free from as much as possible. Nothing's ever risk-free, but from an intrusion perspective, cybersecurity, all of it, we need to ensure the network that gets built for the utility infrastructure is secure.